Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Let's Dev, where today we're starting on a new project to help strengthen my knowledge of 3D in GameMaker. Inspired by the interest I expressed way back during my Desert Child gameplay, I've been wanting to create something similar with the same approach to scaling. So that's what this project will attempt to accomplish. The plan will be to create an autorunner of sorts similar to Desert Child. That includes the presentation with scaling and the like. And regardless of the direction this project goes, the main purpose is to familiarize myself with GameMaker Studio 2's 3D features. Sounds exciting, so let's not waste any more time and get to the coding. First thing up was making our stage scroll indefinitely. 2 arrays were created with 2 entries per array. These arrays would keep track of the X position of our floor and sky planes. The plane's X positions would constantly move to the left until no longer visible, to which they would have their position reset and make the journey back to repeat the process. This data would then be fed to a few matrices containing several vertex planes, which would make up the floor and sky. And this worked, for the most part. The only downside was the appearance of gaps between planes. Now, before we continue, allow me to explain what's supposed to happen. There are 2 main planes being drawn to our stage, one for the floor and one for the sky background. And as mentioned earlier, to give the impression of movement, these planes are constantly moving to the left. When they reach the end and are no longer visible to the player, their position is reset to the far right, slowly making their way back to the left. So alternating between 2 planes for both the sky and floor should mean a seamless transition and thus the illusion of an infinite scrolling level. And y'all, I spent over 40 minutes trying to figure this one out. I knew for a fact that it had to do with the math somewhere in the checks. However, as usual, my terrible math skills meant that figuring out exactly what went wrong seemed damn near impossible. So, for the sake of moving on, a band-aid solution was administered. A static matrix would be drawn below the 2 moving planes, somewhat masking the seam. It wasn't ideal, but for the sake of my sanity, it would do. So back in the code, a boolean was added to control when a stage would scroll. Then our first obstacle was added in the form of a bright red space rock of doom. Then an obstacle object was created, and much like the planes, the obstacle would constantly move to the left until reaching the end, to which it would be destroyed. Next, an endgame function was added to the player, and if the player collides with an obstacle, the stage stops moving and the game slowly counts down to resetting the level. And once again, this code did not work. Again, let me take a second here to explain the thought process. When the player makes contact with a rock, this should have done several things. First, stop scrolling the level. Next, it should have triggered the reset countdown. And when that countdown hits 0, the level is reset. And unfortunately, using GameMaker's built-in collision wouldn't work, and neither would a basic distance check. A position check was made via code, which would then immediately set the necessary variables before executing the reset level function, which thankfully somehow ended up working just as needed. We now had a fail state coded into our game, which pretty funny considering half of our attempts today ended in, well, failure. But having said that, it's cool to figure out how to create the Desert Child-like scaling effect using a simple 3D camera. Though I think the theme may need a change, just so we're not working on 2 space-themed games at the same time, you know? Other than that, I'm interested to see where we go from here, since this is like 50% of Desert Child's racing mechanics. But we'll have to save that for next time, because this brings us to the end of today's episode of Let's Dev. So leave a like if you enjoyed the episode, subscribe and turn on notifications if you haven't already, and be sure to leave your thoughts on our progress in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.